Good afternoon, everyone. To be introduced by Nick is itself a privilege and an honor. And this is the first time I'm getting an award before I get to speak. Thank you to Mr. Kerlin for this lecture series. And sorry, but I apologize to him. I'm not going to give a lecture. I'm just going to tell you stories and show you pictures. First, I'll tell you the story of paintings on cave walls. Then I will tell you the story of war stories. That's more fun. Then I will tell you the story of an ex-convict. And then story of what we can do together. First, story of paintings on the cave walls. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a group of islands so rich and so beautiful, it was called the Pearl of the Orient Seas. The land was so rich, you could plant anything, anytime. The sea was teeming with fish. The trees were all over, the birds were all over. People did not have money, but they were happy. They had friends, they had family, they had leisure, they only worked 1 or 2 hours a day. One day, men from foreign lands came. And then they started cutting down the trees. They started taking out all the fish. And they started disemboweling the earth for shiny pieces of metal. And then they told the natives, this is what happiness is all about. This is what progress and development is all about. One man was so disheartened, he couldn't stand it. He went up the forest, went to the cave, and lived there until the end of his life. Many years later, children went up the mountain and saw the cave, and so they entered the cave. When they entered the cave, it was a big cave, on the left side of the cave, they saw beautiful paintings, depicting how beautiful his home was. And then on the inner side of the cave, on the darker side of the cave, there were realistic paintings of how ugly his world had become. All in the name of GDP. And then on the right side of the cave, where the light was, there were sketches, unfinished sketches, just outlines, perhaps depicting what the future is going to be. My friends, I don't know what the future is going to be, but there are two things I know. If the future is going to be anything of what we see today, it's not going to look pretty. Second, is that we cannot paint the future using the same old paint brushes that we used to paint the past. There are two paint brushes that we human beings use. We use words to reflect our thoughts. Be careful with our thoughts, because they become our words, and be careful with our words, because they will become our destiny. What are the two words? Number one, environment. Ma'am, can I ask you a favor? Can you tell me what do you understand by the word environment? You can stand up if you want. What do you understand by the word environment?
The natural world around us.
The natural, exactly. I give you a gift here. Thank you. Ma'am, can you tell me?
Many green, yes, water.
Right, correct. All of them are correct. If you ask 100 people the definition of environment, or what they understand by the word environment, they'll probably give you 100 answers. And all of them are correct. But that is the problem with the word environment. It does not resonate too much in our brain because it is not even in English. It's not in my language. It's not even English language. It's French. It does not resonate in our heart. It is about our surrounding, or the green, or the ecosystems. That is why it is difficult to understand. The second one is development. We will analyze them carefully. Is the environment about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees? It says it is all around us. Why? Are we the center of the universe? That is the problem. That is the first thought that we need to reverse. We are not the center of the universe. We are not the masters of the earth. We are the Johnny-come-lately occupants. My friends, it took me a lot of time to figure this out, but the environment is not about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees. It is about life and the sources of life, of land, air, and water. Easy to remember. LAW. If you compare that to the human body, these are the vital organs of the earth, without which there is no life. You destroy the quality, you destroy the quantity, there is no life. Where the trees and the forests are the heart and the lungs of the earth, without which we cannot breathe. Where the land and the soil is the skin and the flesh of the earth, from whence we get our food. And the sea and the rivers are the blood and the blood streams of life. My friends, once we understand that, once we redefine the word environment, not about our surrounding, but about life and the life sources, everything else becomes easy. You know why? Because we will do everything in our power to protect it. Because that means life. Oh, we go crazy about the economy. But the foundation of all economy is the land, air, and water. If I had all the money, I had $1 billion, but Dan will have all the water. He will not give me water. Can I drink my money? In argumentation and debate, that's called reductio ad absurdum. Reducing it to absurdity. Oh, and then we talk about development. Ma'am, you know this lady? Do you know this gentleman? No? Yeah, that is how he looked like when he was older. You know him? She's Filipina. You're a student here. You probably don't know him because he's my grandfather. He died at the age of 82. The day after he died, his lawyer called me, says, you know, Tony, your grandfather, you're the favorite of your grandfather. And he left with you, he left for you $10 million. So, wow, that's a lot of money, even in 1978. Okay, thank you. So I got the $10 million. Same evening, I took out $2 million. I brought all my friends, went to the casino, gambled it away. The next day, I did the same thing. The next day, I did the same thing. Until 4.5 days later, there was only about $100,000 left. And then I go back to my accounting books. And then I tell my accountant, record all my losses, all my expenses as income, as revenue. Is that correct? Is that revenue or is that a loss?
It's a loss.
It's a loss. So that's not correct accounting. But isn't that what we're doing to the earth? The earth took 4.5 billion years. It took only 82 years for my grandfather. But it took 4.5 billion years for this planet to have life, that delicate mixture of land, air, and water. Human beings in our shape and form probably came, 10,000, 20,000 years ago? The Industrial Revolution happened only about 200 years ago. But what was significant about the Industrial Revolution is that it marked the era when we started using life sources faster than it could replenish. We take out trees with chainsaws in a matter of minutes. Took all of time to make that happen. And then we call them contribution to gross national product. We take out all the fish. We see all the fish. And then we call it contribution to gross domestic product. We take out minerals that took all of time to become what they are. We take out coal and oil that took 200 million years to become what they are. Burn it in a matter of seconds and call it progress and development. My friends, we call certain countries developed economies and some developing. Let's first define the meaning of the word economics. Anybody? Define economics. Economics is defined, textbook definition, as the efficient use of scarce resources. Yet we call these countries developed economies because they use the most resources, such that 4% of the human population consume about 25% of the world's resources. These countries throw away. They don't eat, they throw away One throws away $20 billion worth of food a year, another throws away 100, the other throws away $101 billion worth of food a year. Is waste economical? It's a contradiction of terms. There is another study which said that if we were to copy, if each of the 7 billion people on the earth copied the lifestyle of one of these countries, of an average person of one of these countries, we will need 9 Earths. Sir, how many Earths do we have?
We've got only one.
One. Therefore, we are copying the wrong model. So, this is the paradigm, the economic paradigm of extraction and consumption. How do we get out of it? We have to think differently. I call that the ex-con economics, the extraction and consumption. By the way, consumption has 2 synonyms. If you look at the dictionary, number 1, it means waste. By definition, consumption means waste. Look at the dictionary. Don't take my word for it. Another synonym is, guess what? Tuberculosis. The eating of bacteria eating the living tissues of the human body. Describes Homo sapiens. So, what is the opposite? It is the economics of conservation, protection, and restoration. CPR. What David Brower calls the cardiopulmonary resuscitation of the vital organs of life. So my friends, I have especially my young friends who are going to school and who will be going to international meetings sometime. Please don't call us, I'm a Filipino, please don't call us developing countries and them developed. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's call them over-consuming countries and us low-consuming countries. They should copy us, not we copy them. Whenever you hear the word, I do this even in the international meetings, said, objection, Your Honor. Misleading. What's the basis? Misleading. No basis. My friends, when you change words, you change meanings. When you change meanings, eventually, you begin to change mindsets. Oh, the story of my grandfather? That's only a story. But that is the best story, you know. Those which blend fact, fiction, and fantasy. The fact is that he's really my grandfather. He was a merchant mariner. The fiction is that he was very rich and he left with me $10 million. And the fantasy is that I inherited that much and squandered it away. But my friends, isn't that the kind of fantasy world we're living in? We take out life sources that took all of time to become what they are and squander it in a matter of seconds and call it progress. They say there are only 2 things in life that aspire for continued growth: economists and cancer cells. And both end up dead. Now I will tell you war stories. Finish the story of the paintings on the cave walls. Now I'll tell you war stories. See, this is my country here. Very tiny. But we're one of the mega diversity countries that hold 80% of all the biological wealth on Earth. This is a study out of the book by Lorenzini, University of Chicago. It says, it is reasonable to think of the Philippines as the Galapagos Islands multiplied tenfold. Imagine, and that's not a Filipino bragging. That's Lorenzini, University of Chicago. That's a page out of his book. But look, using the paradigm of extraction and consumption, ex-con economics, the green part is how we look like in 1900. In less than 100 years, look what happened. I saw this. There were 800,000 hectares, less than 1 million hectares left of virgin forest in the Philippines. We were lagging at deforesting at the rate of 120,000 hectares per year. 800,000 left, and government granted logging concessions to an area covering 4 million hectares. I was a very young lawyer, just a few years out of law school. And I said, what can I do? If I call the press conference, nobody's going to come. And even if they did, I'll get my 10 10 seconds of TV, but I needed to tell the story. So I initiated the case. And who is the real parties in interest? You've taken procedural law. The real party in interest are those which stand to suffer irreversible damage and irreparable injury. And who is going to be the real parties in interest? The children and the children who will come after them. I had a 3-year-old son then. And then I said, by the time he gets 10 years old, 120,000 times 7 is going to be disappear. All the forest will disappear. So I needed to tell a story. But the question was whether they had the cause of action, whether they had legal personality to sue. So the government said, oh, I lost in the trial court. Well, 1 year later, they dismissed my case for no personality to sue. I scratched my head. I said, at the start, people join you. When you lose, even your shadow will leave you. Be prepared for that, because even your shadow will leave you. So they said, Dan, can you read that? The issue, the question of whether or not they had personality to sue. Their personality to sue?
In behalf of the succeeding generations can only be based on the concept of intergenerational responsibility.
That's a big word. I can't even pronounce that. And then the question was, I said they had the right to environment. It was stated in the Constitution. And then the government said, no, it's stated in the Constitution, but it's not in the Bill of Rights. It's under the state policies and principles. So it's just a motherhood statement. It's nebulous at best. So the government said, Anne, can you read that? Just do they, if they are now?
If they are now specially mentioned in the fundamental law of the land, it is because, unless it is written in the Constitution itself.
I reserve the climax for Jason. Can you read that?
The day would not be too far when all else would be lost, not only for this generation, but also for succeeding generations. Generations would stand to inherit nothing but a parched earth incapable of sustaining life.
That was 21 years ago. What's happening now? That's not the Philippines. That's California. They're now having parched earth. And the nice thing was that while the case was pending, the defendant, secretary, took that as a pressure to cancel all the remaining logging concessions in the logging concessions in the remaining 800,000 hectares and moved the policy only to the secondary growths. And then in 1992, there was a law, the Protected Areas Law, which reserved the remaining 800,000 hectares as part of the permanent protected areas. It took 22 years. I asked for the total ban on logging. It was, ridiculous. It took 22 years, one generation. Some even older than some of you here, longer than some of you here. It took 22 years before the office of the president heard. It's not about me. It's about the message, the story that was told. And now we're launching a national greening program. And then, in 2005, I again realized that I said, how do we protect something if we do not even know where it is? There was a constitutional provision that said, Congress shall as soon as possible delineate the final forest lines of the Philippines. This was 1987. But of course, Congress hadn't done anything. This is a perfect example of the saying that if pro is the opposite of con, progress is the opposite of Congress. I'm not talking about your Congress. So, can you mandamus Congress? Are you a law student? Yeah, can you mandamus Congress? I don't know. I don't know myself. Don't worry about the answer. Yeah. Well, I tried because I was not out to mandamus them. I was out to tell a story. So I tried. I filed a case. It took me 3 months to prepare that case. But because my reputation preceded me, within 24 hours from the time the Supreme Court received my mandamus petition, it took action. Case dismissed. My friends, remember what Rudyard Kipling said? We must treat failure and defeat, failure and success like two faces of the same impostor. So I laughed, I move on. I impleaded the Department of Environment and Natural Resources because they would provide the technical support. And guess what happened 7 years later? They got the message. They completed the delineation. So I lost the case, I lost the battle, but the point was made. Some of the crazy things I did there, Oli Hope is a very good writer. I told him the story, and he was able to, it reads like a novel. It's in that book. I went to a fancy law school for my LLM. I came back. I decided to give up my entire law practice instead of going into law practice. I gave up my law practice, and I focused on the sea. I'm really a sea lover. My only position in life is CBB, Certified Beach Bum. So I saw this. This is a book, 6 volumes, 4,000 pages. Where is the richest marine waters on earth? It is there. The Sulu-Sulawesi Marine Triangle, the Indo-Malay-Philippine Archipelago. But further studies by Kent Carpenter showed that the center of the center, he calls it the center of marine biodiversity on Earth, is located in this group of islands called the Philippines. Look at this. This red part is the center of the center. That red part, this is the Visayan Sea, I'll show you later, and this is Manila Bay. Manila Bay, I discovered late 1990s, we were dumping 4 million gallons or 16 million liters of raw and untreated sewage every day into Manila Bay. Time to tell another story. So, there I found a 1977 law, but that nobody bothered to read. It said government plus all this junk. Imagine all of that. So, time to tell another story. Filed a case for mandamus against about 11 government agencies to clean up Manila Bay. There was a law. I was able to find a law that nobody bothered to read. This is how it looks. I'm a scuba diver. Who are scuba diver here? I'm a scuba diver. Good. If you see the underwater, it looks like that in the Philippines. And because of dynamite fishing and all kinds of crazy illegal fishing, that is what it looks like after it is blasted out. So I said, never mind the case. It's going to take forever anyway. So I wanted to do something on the ground. So I started arresting, catching. I focused my attention on the Visayan Sea here. That is the geographic, I call that the geographic heart of marine biodiversity on Earth. So I started arresting on my own, arresting dynamite fishermen. And then I had them, tried them, convicted them. But that's not the story. The story is, in open court, I tell the judge, Your Honor, convict them, but let them go on probation. And then as a condition of their probation, they must protect the sea that they destroyed. They must restore the sea that they destroyed. After all, life is about redemption. We all commit mistakes anyway. And I committed 100 more. These are several. So this is I call it the Adversaries to Allies program. Now they're Adversaries to Advocates program. And then I was not contented. These are the small fry. I said, these are the small fry. So I ran after the syndicates. The syndicates that were selling the blasting caps and the blasting powder. So this is one of the spectacular raids that I conducted. It was a truck full of explosives and 3 kilometers of detonating fuse. Imagine how many corals, how many fish that would kill. And then this was in 2004. And then this was a series. We just hit them and hit them. Even public officials, I don't care. And then I went after that. I went after the commercial fishing boat operators. These are the big time, the really big time. And succeeded in jailing many of them. This is one picture. I just covered his face so that he doesn't get embarrassed. And all throughout the process, this man, Jojo de la Victoria, was my buddy. See, this was a pre-launch briefing. We were in that gunboat. I didn't have a boat, so I borrowed the boat of the Navy. The Commodore of the Navy was my friend, so I borrowed this boat. And then we would use it for raids. You don't have to be rich, you just have to have friends who have boats. So this is Jojo. This is one of the raids that we conducted, 3, 4 o'clock, all bleary-eyed. And then we did this raid, and then this and that. Of course, that got me into trouble. That got us into trouble. Monday morning, there was a news article that says, Oposa and De La Victoria, death threats. Whoa. Says there's a 1 million peso, which is $20,000 more or less, reward that could kill him and me, or me. So really, we were joking. I said, tell them just to give the money to our families, and then we will commit suicide. So we were just laughing at it. Until 48 hours later, somebody comes into his house and then shoots him with 45 caliber, six bullets. He died. That was one of the big setbacks in my life. That was one of the last times I cried. I almost, collapsed when I was on the beach then, on that beach that you saw earlier. Can you read that? 1 million. Can you read that?
Yes.
1 million reward. What's that? 1 million reward. Can you read that aloud?
The whole thing?
No, this. 1 million reward.
1 million reward for the person who could assassinate him and Oposa.
You ever had a hit contract out on you? It's not fun. But we went on. My greatest achievement was that the commercial fishing boat operators, who were my adversaries, are now helping me put up marine fish condominiums. I'll show you what the fish condominiums look like. Okay, so you cannot solve problems just by pure enforcement. You have to educate. And I knew that. So I said, this is my little house on the beach. This is my little front yard. Nick has been there. Jason, this hammock has your name on it. And Lynn and Ann, this is one. And then you can lend to them the other one. Nick has been there. Used one of those hammocks there. So I also taught experiential learning. Teach by example and experience. Teach kids. Bring them out to the sea because they don't even know how the underwater looks like. See, look how happy they are when they get to see the underwater. 90% of our people, we live in the richest marine waters on earth, but 90% of our people do not know how to swim. Isn't that a shame? Teach them how to plant. And then even the human solid waste, we collect it. It's collected in the septic tank, and then the biogas digester. The methane is captured in a biogas digester and turned into cooking gas. Simple technology. It's all available. And then, what are the 3 R's of solid waste management? Reduce, reuse, and recycle. We have only 1 R. Remove the word waste from our operating system and mental vocabulary. To paraphrase Mr. Gandhi, there is enough for everybody to use, but not enough for a single man to waste. So, our waste, we grind it, and then we mix it with solid, we mix it with cement, and then we make fish condominiums. These are fish condominiums. I just invented this thing, and this is how it looks like underwater. It's so much fun putting them underwater, and then this is how they look like. This is part of the dancing fish that I will tell you about a little bit later. And then, November 8th, last year, less than a year ago, things changed. The game changed. Why? Haiyan came and said, people asked, were you damaged? I said, no, we were not damaged. Oh, really? You were hit directly? I said, yeah, we were not damaged. We were erased. Look at that. We were gone with the wind. This is once a forest. Look at, this is 2 days after Haiyan. There's not a leaf left. This is my little house. And at this juncture, I would like to thank one of the professors here who reached out to me and helped me in the rebuilding efforts. Right there, Carl Copeland. Please give him a round of applause. Oh, in the process, after trying it for 2 years, 3 years in the trial court, we went to the Court of Appeals, what you call here the Circuit Court, and then we went to the Supreme Court after 10 years. Finally, the Supreme Court rendered a decision ordering 11 government agencies to clean up Manila Bay. The nice thing is, they accepted, I mean, they they agreed with my proposition that, if you get a decision now, they're just going to forget it. But the court required them to report to the court every 3 months, every 90 days. So I have reports now this big. I don't bother to read them. But if 99% is BS, at least there will be 1% that's true. Oh, then we finished the story of paintings on the cave walls. Now we talked about a few of the war stories. Now we talk about the ex-convict. This is the story, the meat of the story. What's that? Like Carl Copeland, Bobby Kennedy, many of you here, Dan Estrin now, we've been fighting fires. We've been fighting the fire. And only to realize that behind the bushes is lurking a convicted arsonist, who, in the words of John Bona, I talked to him 2 days ago, says he's been lighting fire. He says, no, Tony. John said, he's been pouring gasoline into the fire. And who is that? That is the ex-con economist, the extraction and consumption economist, who we have convicted, we have tried, we have indicted, tried, and convicted of the crime of planetary plunder. All in the name of progress and development. All in the name of GDP. Ma'am, can you read what GDP means?
Great disaster for the planet.
There. Please use that. The climate crisis, I don't call it climate change anymore. I call it climate crisis. You've seen what happened. The climate crisis is happening because of this ex-con economics mindset. So what is, look, I will show you a little map. This comes from your agency, NOAA. The hottest body of water is around the Philippines. You also have hot body of water. What does that mean? Hot water, in the study, in the science of meteorology, hot water is the fuel of typhoons and hurricanes. Typhoons and hurricanes are normal, but their intensity is increased because of hot water. You can check that with any meteorologist. Number two, where there is hot water, greater evaporation, greater condensation, and greater precipitation. In our land, it is called rain. In your country, it is called snow. The other issue, the other consequence of that is thermal expansion. Anything that you heat expands, cold contracts. You have hot water, it expands. So we are also experiencing the highest rate of sea level rise. But my friends, every danger, this is the Chinese character for crisis. Made up of two characters. One is danger and the other is opportunity. We see the danger. This is a storm surge. This happened in Tacloban. 6,000 people died. I read in your article, Nick, it said, human beings are a defining moment in history. Yes, we will be defined. Today we are going to be defined whether we will be the Homo sapiens, meaning the wise animals, or we will be the Homo idiots. It is up to us. We see the opportunity. What is the solution? Go back to what we were talking about. If the science or if the mindset of extraction and consumption got us into the problems we're in now, what is the opposite? 180 degrees, which is conservation, protection, and restoration. How do it's a cardiopulmonary resuscitation of the vital organs of life. I also call it restorative economics. Economics that will restore the ecosystems, that will restore the life sources of land, air, and water, that will restore the lost connection between man and nature, and that will restore the social fabric, the fraying social fabric of humankind, of humanity. And most of all, restore the common sense goal of life, which is not economics, it's called happiness. So, how do human beings learn? How do we learn how to write? We learned by example. Our parents taught us A, B, C. So, the challenge now this is part, we're starting. We're starting. This is part of the exercise that we are doing now. We will find examples of these restorative economics at work. And, for example, soil and water conservation. This is the Ifugao rice terraces of the Philippines. It is the largest rice terraces in the world. It has been there for the last 2,000 years. The soil has been preserved. The technology is there. And you know what, Nick, you'll like this. This is the only man-made wonder of the world that was not made by slave labor. It was built by cooperation, by community spirit. Now they call it sloping agricultural land technology. Soil conservation, so basic. That is where our food comes from, so let's protect it. Conservation of electricity. Fukushima, after Fukushima happened, they shut down 50 of their nuclear power plants. And just by sheer conservation measures, the Japanese saved 27 gigawatts of electricity just by simple conservation, common sense conservation. What about happiness? I took this picture. I went to Bhutan because I had to understand what they were trying to say. This is Bhutan. So beautiful. It is the closest thing to Shangri-La. They do not have GNP. They do not have GDP. They only have GNH, gross national happiness. And you may say, how did they measure that? They have developed an entire science about it. They even have a GNH commission, a high-level secretary, a high-level chaired by the prime minister. Every project that goes through them has to be measured, has to be screened, whether it will bring happiness or sickness. And I mean no offense. There is I will not name the company, but there is one hamburger chain in one of the so-called over-consuming countries. That is the only country in the world that does not have that hamburger chain. Because they say, I said, why not? He says, because it does not lead to happiness. It leads to illness. There's a movie, remember? Supersize Me. Catskill Mountains. Right next to you. Your forefathers had the vision to preserve that. Now it produces water. It produces some of the finest quality water. Conservation, protection. Singapore, they don't have water, so they capture their water. Puerto Princesa, they only had 3 flights a day, but the visionary mayor there said, no mining, no logging, we will just restore our forest and restore our seas. 20 years later, they have 20 flights a day, from 3 flights a week to 20, and now the underground river, which is fantastic, you should see it one day, is now one of the 7 new wonders of the world. The new 7, Apo Island, Sagay Marine Reserve. This was hotbed of dynamite fishing before, and now they are nobody's poor because they protected their sea, so they have the fish. Traffic. There's only one country I saw, 2 countries I saw, Denmark and this, where they don't have traffic. They only have, because people ride bicycles, they have trams, they walk. This is, Discovery Bay is one of the enclaves, the rich enclaves of Hong Kong. You know what makes it so special? No cars. My friends, when was the last time you saw a shooting star? And what did you feel when you saw a shooting star? You felt the magic of the moment. And why do we not see the stars anymore? Because the city is ablaze with lights. Perhaps that is symbolic of our wasteful use of energy. So many lights that we do not need, turned on even if we don't using it. So we don't reconnect to the shooting stars. We no longer sit under the canopy of the heavens and gaze at those pinpricks of light we call the stars. What about dancing fish? You see, this is the marine sanctuary. I cannot describe how beautiful it is underwater. But in the evening, we go to the beach right here, and then we beam a high-powered flashlight. Nick has seen that. And then the fish just jump, different kinds, different forms, different sizes, and different directions. They jump. It's like dancing. It's like a panorama of dancing fish. It is unspeakably beautiful. You will get goosebumps. And what is the lesson there? The lesson is, if we just took care of the sea, the fish will not only feed us, they will even dance for us. And how do you develop the policy and the legal framework for that? This is what I'm trying to research on. I'm trying to do it using simple the hierarchy of needs. Start with food all the way up to self-realization. My friends, this is a research that is ongoing, and I would like to invite my friends here, especially the young friends, my friends here, to give me ideas, give me examples. I showed you a few examples. I have more, but I showed you a few on how this is happening. There's no perfect society, but we can pick out samples from all around the world. We lawyers, what's our role? We have been the facilitators of ex-con economics. Some of us, with the exception of people like Nick, Dick, and Carl, and many of the so-called environmental lawyers. We say so-called because they think we're hippies. No, we're not hippies, we're lawyers. We just care for the life sources. It is time that we become the handmaiden of the new paradigm of CPR economics. This is the ex-con economics lawyer, and the crocodile says, please don't compare me to a lawyer. I am insulted. So what's the next part of the program? The next part is that we develop, from the examples, we develop the principles, the policies, and the legal framework. That is the challenge. That is what I am here for, to sit down for some quiet time, listen to you. I'm not here to teach you. I'm not here to tell you what's going on. I'm here to share with you. All throughout, I developed what I call the theory of catalytic intervention. There are certain interventions that if you take, will lead to a series of actions. There are certain actions that will lead to a series of actions that will lead to massive change. For example, if you build a road inside the forest, especially in the Philippines, you will bring the loggers, you will bring the slash and burn farmers, and before you know it, that forest becomes a parking lot. They say, you've heard of this, the reintroduction of wolf it led to many changes that were all positive. The other positive that I discovered was this, traffic congestion in the Philippines. Look at that. Is that the way to live? Now, I also saw that there are less than 2% of the population of the 100 million people in the Philippines own motor vehicles. Yet, all of the roads are given to them. The 98% who do not have motor vehicles are not even given a proper sidewalk. So, look at that. 788,000 cars, 100 million people. We know the disadvantages of a car-based system. We know that. I don't have to explain that to you. There are 60 cars occupied by about 70 people. If we just followed what I call the principle of the ant, you follow a single file, they would all be here, and this would all be vacant. So, this is more graphic. See? The climate gases. Oh, this is something interesting I discovered while I was preparing for the case. That if you counted all the gases, all the carbon footprint of the motor vehicle, the internal combustion engine motor vehicle powered cars, including steel, oil, plastics, rubber, HFCs, it would amount to about 1/2 of the climate forcing gases. I have that on judicial affidavit of my witness. Then, look at this. This one runs on hydrocarbons and makes you sick. This one runs on, look at that. This one runs on carbohydrates. That one runs on carbohydrates and make you healthy. Look at that. Do we want that or do we want this? Of course we want this. How do you solve that? Again, time will tell a story. That public transportation, you can think of many things. Oh, I invented this thing. It's solar powered, it's wind powered, and then it's pedal powered. It's all charging a bank of batteries. I called it the self-contained renewable energy transport, secret. And then the Belém, the one that you showed, Nick Robinson rode one of those. You have different kinds of transportation. You just have to think differently. You make it even more interesting. You have all these benefits. I counted it will lead to about 25 cascading benefits if we just changed the mindset. They say that there are three kinds of social change. One is the social change that comes from top down. The other is from bottom up. Top down is fast, but it is not sustainable because when the top is changed, everything changes. Bottom up is sustainable, but takes a very long time. The fastest social changes happen with what we call the sandwich theory, where the top meets the bottom. So, having said that, I said, time for me to tell another story through the court. But this time, I said, we'll try the sandwich theory. 2 days before I filed that case in February 17, you can't even find my name there. I invited all the prospective respondents for breakfast. This one. These are the cabinet secretaries. I invited them for breakfast. I said, on Monday, I'm going to sue all of you. And it just turned out that here, Nanette Siring is the sister of one of the cabinet secretaries, that one. Small world. They're all my friends now. See, they're even happy that they will be sued. They're all smiling. So, what was the demand? The petition was to divide all the roads by half. You say it's ridiculous. It's as ridiculous as cleaning up Manila Bay. It's as ridiculous as canceling all logging concessions in the Philippines. Divide all the roads by half. Half for motor vehicles, including public transportation and cars, and half for bike lanes and sidewalks. Ridiculous? Says, you must be happy. We're only asking for one half. They're 98% of us. We should be asking for 98%, and all the cars should only be in the sidewalks. This is the beauty of a legal. I know Carl and you who are litigators know this, Dan. The beauty of a legal action is, number one, you can tell a story. Number two, you put the issue on the table of discussion to be discussed in a manner that is logical, orderly, and backed up by evidence. Number three is that it is a crisis that triggers action. The respondents are going to have to answer and are going to have to think about how to answer it. And number four, sooner or later, win or lose, there's going to be a resolution. It can take 10 years, it can take 20 years, I don't care. For easy mnemonic aid, STAR, story, table, action, and resolution. So I talked to the mayors, different mayors. Finally, I found this mayor. And then we tested the green loop. And I'm so happy, and I hope my friends from Cebu will see this, that 3 days ago, finally, after 12 years, finally, we tested, the pilot tested. Look, we divided the roads, bicycles, people walking, and cars. They're all traffic. They're all abuzz now. The news media is all angry at us because they're all traffic. Good for you. I don't care. Now, there is something I would like to ask you off camera. I will ask you for a favor shortly. Look at how happy these people are. All the benefits of cooperation, of restoring sense of community, it's all happening. See? Even PWDs, even this guy, we never knew who he was. He just shared the road on the back of his. It's not even printed properly. It's just handwritten. But you see inclusivity. This is my first experience to engage people. So my friends, I've told you stories of, number one, paintings. Number two, the war stories. Number three, what can you do? And number four, what we can do together. Before I go there, my friends, I just want to emphasize that each one of you has the power to do something in your hands. Each one of you has the power to make a change. Who do you change? What did he say? Be the change that you seek. When you go home today, when you go home now, if you have a television set that is on standby and you have that pilot lamp there, if you have that microwave oven that has that light there, go home, unplug it, or find a power switch and unplug it. Do you know that the United States alone, if you unplug this, you will save about 2 billion watts, equivalent to about 7 or 8 coal-fired power plants. You don't need it, you're not using it. So why don't you unplug it? You don't need the time there. There's a clock. You have a watch. You have your cell phone. So what can we do together? First is CPR economics. I'd like to invite you, my friends, especially my young friends and the professors as well, to give me ideas, examples, and together we can draw up the legal and the policy framework. Just an outline. And number two, this is still in the incipient stage and it's very exciting. Our good guru here, Dick Ottinger, said, sue the bastards. This time, we're going to sue the whole world. We will initiate a legal action in the International Court of Justice on the question, what is the duty of states to protect humankind of the present and future generations from the climate crisis? To do that, we need a General Assembly resolution. Tarin is working on it too. And then, hopefully, if I have 1 or 2 who will sign up, we can have, I do not like working, so I don't call it a workshop, I call it a play shop. My friends, in closing, let me say thank you to the following people who have made possible my trip here. Lynn Harmon, I've been coordinating with her since last year. All of these, Leslie, Laura, where's Laura? Where's Laura? She's not, Laura, Tarin, Teresa, I saw Teresa here. Tiffany, Judy, Kathy. Kathy is there. She's the most important person in this whole room, in this whole college. You know her? I said she's more important than the dean. Why? Because you can do without the dean, but you cannot do without eating. She's the one who takes care of your eating of your food. Kay, Angie, David, Yaski. If you see, most of them are women. They say if you want anything said, give it to a man. But if you want anything done, and done well, give it to a woman. True? He's smiling. He doesn't really like it. Oh yeah, 2 daughters. And my friends, as a token of my thanks to you, this is my little home. This is my little office here. So as an exchange program, you can send your students there, and they can have that for a few weeks to do their studies. But you'll have to make your own fish condominiums too. My friends, I wish to thank the following people who have inspired me. I will not mention all their names because they're here. Carl, Dick, David, Durwood, Guspeth, and those friends here who have reached out to me after Typhoon Haiyan. My friends, they say better than 1,000 days of study, of diligent study, is a day with a great teacher. This great teacher, when I filed that Manila Bay case, it was another one of those ridiculous cases that I didn't even tell anybody in the Philippines. But he knew about it, I told him. And that was when I first came. And he invited me to a meeting of the river keepers, of the water keepers, the river keepers. During the murder of Jojo, and when I was under threat, this man, and I see his wife here, Shelley, reached out to me and gave me, says, you hide, you do use whatever you want with this little money. You do, you hide your family, etc., etc. But instead, I built the School of the Sea. And then later, he was the only one who inspired me that I heard him give a talk in 2007 in Singapore, and he said, we must abolish the internal combustion engine. And I said, who's been thinking about this? I've been thinking about this too. Maybe I'm not as stupid as I look. Because he's more intelligent than me. And I told him about CPR economics, and I told him about the ICJ project, and he says, go. My friends, better than 1,000 days of diligent study, and that is why I am here to be with this great teacher, Professor Nicholas Robinson. Take-home messages. 3, only 3. Remember this. By the way, I'm going to give you a copy of this presentation, and you can use it copyright-free. Number 1, do not believe in the impossible. The impossible is only impossible because no one has dared to try it. And corollary to that, do not be afraid to fail. Failure strengthens you. You cannot be a good mariner on smooth. You're a sailor. You're a sailor here. You cannot be a good mariner. You cannot be a good sailor in smooth seas. The line I read recently. It's only in rough seas that you can be a good mariner. You can be a good sailor. Remember, my friends, I shared with you certain stories of unexpected consequences, beneficial consequences. I'm not yet dead. I'd like to share with you the line by Wolfgang von Goethe. He said, whatever it is you can do or dream you can, begin it. In boldness there is genius, power, and magic. Number 2, there is no limit to what we can achieve when we do not care who gets the credit. And number 3, my friends, the time for talk is over. It is time for action. Even that small action that you will take when you go home, that itself is sufficient because it converts consciousness into conservation action. My daughter, who is much smarter than I am, says the problem of the world is not global warming, it is global whining. We keep on talking and talking about it. I like this line by James Barker. It says, vision without action is nothing more than a dream. Action without vision merely wastes time. But vision with action can and will change the world. My friends, they say man is most active when he's standing up. He's most creative when he's lying down. The compromise is to sit down. You've been sitting down for almost an hour now. And so I would like to ask you please to stand up, if only to symbolize the need for action. Please stand up. And then, no, not yet, because this is not about me. Remember? And then I would like to ask you to please read this with me. Read it aloud. Do not read it to me. Do not read it to your professors. We all come and go. But you will be staying for a longer time. Read it to this young boy, because many years from now, he will hold us accountable for what we do or for what we fail to do today. 10, 50, 100 years from now, and many generations hereafter. Let it be said that during our watch, while gifted with intelligence and insight, with privilege and position, with the wealth of wisdom, and with the freedom and power of the human will, let it be said that in our time and during our watch, we did our share. And maybe, just maybe, we will make a little difference. They say it is easy to make money, but it is much more meaningful to make a difference, a little difference. Thank you and good afternoon.